What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sideline Sports. I'm Trevor, your host. My co-host here, Alex. We're going to be talking 49ers today. We have a new schedule, so every Monday at 11, we're going to try and get the podcast going. So every Monday at 11 will be Niners talk here, and maybe the videos will be a little shorter for a little bit after this because the season is winding down. But let's get into it and start talking Niners. The season's finally over, and I think we're in the acceptance phase of we suck this year, just because of injuries and bad calling and a questionable defensive coordinator, amongst other things. So today we're going to talk a little bit about where we go in the offseason, how the Niners are going to get better, who should be staying, who should be going. And some of the players stood out in this last game against the Cardinals. It really didn't matter. The game started off pretty well and somewhat close and under control until about the third quarter. But the Niners end up losing 24-47. They secured that 11th spot in the draft. We'll talk a little bit about some of the draft picks that are available for the 49ers coming up. Specifically, I'd like to talk about offensive tackles. But anyway, so what do you think, Alex? The game overall was kind of lackluster, and it didn't really matter anyway. But at least we got to see some of the players come out and some players shine. Ricky Parcell just ended the season well, so that's a shining spot. Josh Dobbs had 326 yards, two touchdowns, but still two interceptions. Very much mirroring the kind of play that Brock Purdy has been playing like. So, yeah, I mean, the defense broke down yesterday.
Juwan Jennings broke down.
And yeah, so yeah, so where do we go from here? Geez, where do we even start? Okay, defensive coordinator. Do we think he's going to be gone? I think he is. You just mentioned something about Nick Bosa basically not giving him
Yeah,
too much
saw
of
an
an endorsement.
article. Athlon, I think it was the name of the site, to credit it properly.
Hmm.
And he said, I think he's a good coach, but it's not my decision. So pretty neutral. Like if he comes back, I don't think he beats dogs, but it's not my decision. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
not really. I get it. You don't really want to say much, especially if the guy comes back and your boss hates you because you said you wanted him gone.
yeah,
I would think unless they strike out on Salah because I don't know if Salah has like a long-term contract with the Packers or he just has something for this season as a place to, you know, keep getting some checks and contribute. I mean, I'm not saying he'll phone it in because that guy doesn't phone anything in, but I'm
no,
saying he's not committed long term as far as I know. But if they don't, I think they got to get somebody high profile because I don't think you're really going to change other than maybe having to like swap out, when you're paying Brock Purdy and who knows what happens with the Greenlaw situation. I don't know if they're going to add salary in terms. I mean, they might swap like equivalent if they have to make some sacrifices or restructure, but assuming they have essentially the same personnel when you get Greenlaw back, I mean, is Bosa trying to hint that like they're not scheming him properly, that like they're not using him enough, like are they not blitzing enough, are they not putting him in the right spots to like to for matchups? Like,
yeah. I mean, that must be what he's talking about because I have not been. I've been on. I've been hard on both of the last year or so, and I feel like I have good reason. But you do bring up some good points. Like there's been two defensive coordinators in the last 2 years, and we didn't really like either one of them all that much. So for that reason, I guess you're right. You do kind of have to give Bosa a pass. I would love to see what happens next year. I don't. I think no excuses next year if
no.
they get Sala back. If they don't and they keep this offense or defensive coordinator, I would say, then at least he has 1 year under his belt, and we'll see what this guy does in year two with this defensive side of the ball. I really do not want to see this guy back. I just didn't like the way he used anybody on the field. Um,
Uh,
I'm not sure Nick. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Nick Bosa as far as well, the bottom line is he needs help. That's it. Okay. So
yeah.
even the best players in the league, if he's the only one on the defensive line getting any kind of penetration towards a quarterback, pretty soon they're just going to key on that guy. And then that guy's going to be rendered useless and they're going to dare somebody else on that defensive line. to step up. And it just doesn't work like that in football, like basketball or baseball, where individuals can get hot and then they can kind of help carry the team a little bit in a way. It doesn't work like that with defensive line. They all have to work together and they all have to kind of be able to get at the quarterback. Just moving an offensive lineman over to double up on Bosa, um, you can do that a little bit if you know that the rest of those guys on that line are weak, but it's not freeing up. Double covering Bosa is not freeing up any space for any of those other guys to get at the quarterback. That's how bad they are right now,
Yeah.
which is a really bad sign. That defensive line needs upgrading, just like the offensive line. So let's
Yeah. I
see.
mean,
Yeah.
we used to have Armstead and we used to have DeForest Buckner
Yeah.
along with Bosa, and it was like I think it was the first few years with Salah, and it's like look at that, you got like 2, 3 dudes who could be blitzing and or covering all the assignments, and then Bosa can just kind of go free or Buckner or Armstead, and it's really like you can't double up because go double up on those dudes, like
Oh no, it wouldn't happen because then what would happen was Nick Bosa would have a day, or Buckner or somebody else on the other side of the line would have a day, but somebody is going to get at that quarterback.
yeah,
So, and
Armstead,
then yeah, and you have people hurt, on the defensive line as well. So it
yes,
didn't, it didn't help. Um, so this year, I think a lot of people, including myself, would just like to act like that never happened and kind of restart next year. I feel like that's the way it should go because this wasn't a bunch of starters out there just getting their ass kicked. This was a team that was hurt every step of the way. And you just say, I want to wash my hands for this. This isn't a bad team. This team just got to the point where everybody was hurt all the time and you
oh
couldn't
yeah,
get your footing anywhere. On top of that, I don't believe the defensive schemes were well thought out or well played. But you have some shining stars that can come in next year, and when this defense is healthy, is going to really, really stand out. Mustafa next year, I think, is really going to take a
yeah,
step when he gets help. If you when you have other players that are going to come back on that defense is going to look a lot better. Hufanga, which I still think is good. Some people are saying that maybe he overplays the ball a little bit. I wouldn't disagree with that because he is the kind of guy who's a ball hawk and goes to where the ball is, and sometimes he overplays it. Probably shouldn't, but high risk, high reward. That's the kind of guy he is. I see that. If he can just button that up a little bit, he's going to be great back there too. So, and then with Greenlaw back, it's going to be an outstanding defense next year if they play their cards right and if they go and get some help on the defensive line.
yeah. I think it's even with injuries and wanting to be a little more conservative in the play calling because you don't have as many of the weapons, there's still got to be times where it's like I didn't felt like quarterbacks didn't have a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
I felt like we were just super porous, leaked like a sieve for the run defense. I'm not an
Mhm.
expert, but I can tell when people are getting like,
You don't
ripped.
have to be to see
Yeah,
that. You don't have
yeah,
to be to see that you
uh,
get run on all day and you can't
yeah.
stop.
I thought the secondary was fine, like Travarius Ward and Lenore, and I was like, that was, but it's just how much can they do when everyone's getting, when people are just gashing like crazy,
Yeah,
it puts them on their heels for the secondary. It makes it a lot harder, because they're just like, oh, I can do whatever we want.
totally agree with
That
you.
was
I mean,
terrible.
that
Special
secondary
teams was
could be
atrocious.
upgraded, but they aren't the
Huh?
weak spot on the defense when everybody else is
No, no.
far worse or hurt.
Special teams was trash. Like I would be like, I'd turn around and look back and be like, oh my God, why are they on the 50? Oh, and I go back and be like, oh my God, they got there on the kickoff on the, like, geez, what?
Yeah.
It just every time, like,
Hmm.
that's going to make a defense tired, you know?
The special teams is garbage. They need to basically shit can it all and
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
start over. That coach should be gone. I'm sure he will be. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but that guy's gone. That special teams needs to be revamped.
Moody.
And yeah, Moody is gone. And I mean,
I
there's no
feel
doubt
for
in
him,
my
but yeah.
mind he's gone. And the defensive coordinator in my mind should be gone because I don't think if he's a good defensive coordinator, I don't see it here. I don't see the players responding to it, and I don't see him using the players we have up to their potential. So I don't think he's the right man for the job. Maybe he'll stay, but I don't think he should. What about Jennings getting kicked out of the game? He is 25 yards short at this point in the game in the second quarter. He was 77 at the beginning of the game. He made up some yardage there and got down to only needing 25 yards for the $1.5 million bonus. And he pulls something crazy and gets kicked out of the game.
Knucklehead. I mean, I'd still pay the man. I'd still hope that he wouldn't do that kind of stuff in a game that counts. It's disappointing that he cost himself money and also a milestone because I really like that. I really like him, and I believe he should have been walking past 1,000 yards and
Absolutely.
snatching that bonus and putting that feather in his cap. And I don't know, maybe it's just boiling over frustration and John Lynch on the game before Al Michaels and they were just it was Al Michaels, yeah, they were just like sitting there going, I think he wants to put his fist through the glass. So maybe Jennings is in the same position. Maybe Lynch has to look at that and go, we got to make some changes so we don't have players losing
Right.
their bleep, like the composure, because that's not good.
Yeah.
You don't want Jennings to like want to look for a different team because he just is like getting frustrated. You want to like before next year nip that in the bud because you're trying to be in win now mode, and if the wheels
Mhm.
come off with the players who are established because they're just done with it, like that's a problem.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's actually one of the smallest problems. I mean, I haven't seen too many players blow up like that, but I do agree that the Niners, I think, are ready for this season to be over, and they were ready 2 games ago when they were out of the playoffs, and maybe even earlier than that. This is what happens when you have a Super Bowl hangover. And it's not just a Super Bowl hangover because the Niners have been to 2 Super Bowls and multiple NFC championships in the last 4 years. So they are really, really tired, I'm sure, with no downtime in the offseason. With this offseason, they're going to get it. And when they come back, I think they're going to come back stronger. Right now, they have the number 11 overall pick in the draft coming up, and there's a few offensive linemen in the top 10 players in football right now declaring for NFL draft. Will Campbell out of LSU, which LSU
Yeah.
produced really great offensive defensive linemen. You have Kelvin Banks out of Texas, who we know is really good. And then you have Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Those three guys are very well known, very good players, and every one of them can probably come in and play now. So I think one of those guys is good. It also gives me the thought that maybe the Niners could trade that number 11 pick, like we were talking about earlier, and get another player in, and then draft one of those offensive tackles as well, because one of them may drop till 10 to 20. I'm almost I'm almost positive they will because there's a lot of players out there that are going to be drafted. I mean, there's all the hype around Travis Hunter out of Colorado, and then you have other players, Cam Ward. There's a lot of players out there that are going to go in the top 10 before an offensive tackle will. So one of those guys will be available, I believe. So the Niners are in a good spot in the draft, 100%,
Yeah.
depending on how they play it. Yeah,
It's going to be interesting because Trent Williams could be like maybe he wants to retire. Maybe that saves them having to worry about how to pay Greenlaw, or maybe it gives them more, they can spend elsewhere. If they trade Debo, they maybe can keep the 11th pick and
yeah,
trade Debo, or maybe it gets to the point where they're like, I mean, Debo could play a year for them. Uh, if they don't find a trade and he becomes more of a special teams guy, because he was pretty solid when he was doing returns. Like,
sure,
he
but
was,
I don't think he's going to want to stay there. I think
oh
the Niners
no,
are going to have to alleviate some cash anyway, right? So him
no.
being moved makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot.
Oh, I'm saying he still would do other things. Like if they decide to keep him,
Yeah,
he would split his time and be that Swiss Army knife, but he'd have to, be lower on the depth chart. But I have a feeling
Mhm.
he's probably got to be traded.
Yeah, I mean,
just
there's
because
no
of the
place for him
salary.
anymore on this team. Once
Yeah.
you got Christian McCaffrey, his workload already diminished, and it wasn't because he was a bad player. It was just because there's, like you said, he's a Swiss Army knife, but he doesn't. He does a lot of things great, he doesn't have a starting spot on this team somewhere. It makes perfect sense, and when you're paying Brock Purdy, you're gonna have to get rid of somebody. And he's a good guy to get rid of because you can trade him for some value. I totally think putting him together with that 11 pick and moving down in the draft just two or three spots can get them a 2-for-1 when it comes to these players, right? They're gonna get two players for one out of this. One probably veteran offensive or defensive
Yeah.
guy. One I'd go one offense and one defensive, one offensive lineman, one defensive lineman. If
Yeah, they don't need
you can
running
swing
back.
it that way, yes.
They don't
Yeah.
need a receiver. They don't need anything. Assuming Ayuk comes back healthy, assuming McCaffrey and Mason and Garendo are in there, you've got your 1, 2, and 3. Like you've got all your running backs.
Yeah.
You've got all your, you've got Ayuk, Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle. You're fully loaded, and
Yeah.
you're going to
Your
have your
offensive
quarterback.
firepower is great.
Yeah,
You don't need to touch that. You
yeah.
know?
So if you're going to go offense, it's going to have to be offensive linemen,
Yes.
all the way.
Yeah.
And that provides a lot of clarity, but it also signals to teams who want to trade draft picks or players, where it's gonna it puts it out there saying don't come to us with silly stuff.
Yeah.
We
Agreed.
want
Agreed.
this. If you don't have this to offer us,
Yeah.
take your
Kick rocks.
wares somewhere else.
Yeah, there's no way that the Niners don't come out of this in the offseason in a better position than they left this season. I just
Yeah.
think that getting that 11 pick overall is big. That's why at the end of the season I was kind of secretly hoping that they just
Mhm.
lost the rest of their games because I wanted them to drop in the not because of. See, these guys have the morale already. Like losing the last 5 or 6 games, which they lost four in a row, is not going to stop them from coming back strong next year. Maybe if there was weaker-minded players, but you got players like Kittle, that's not going to kill their.
Yeah.
They're only going to think, okay, let's get this other asset in the draft, or let's trade and get somebody in here. I mean, they're not that far away from being elite. They're elite now.
Oh,
They just were hurt, and I think a lot of teams are taking their injuries for a team on the decline. They're not on the decline. They just were injured like crazy. I think next year a lot of teams are going to get shocked by that. And I think with their schedule next year, who they're playing is
yep.
favorable for the
Yeah.
49ers. You have the Titans, you
Yeah.
got the Bears, you got Jacksonville, you've got the Indianapolis Colts. Those are teams that when the Niners are fully healthy will roll, just roll.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they just
Yeah.
will.
I know.
So
I'm pretty excited. Like
yeah,
I took it with a grain of salt. It's like, look, it kind of is a very San Francisco thing. If you think of like the Giants dynasty, where
yeah,
it's like either they went all the way or they didn't even make the playoffs, during the Buster Posey, era, the 2010, 2012, 2014, and then
yes,
a brief appearance in like what 2016 where they kind of outperformed what their talent level was.
right.
And it's similar with Shanahan, where it's like like as I was looking at it, it's like eighth year as a coach. I'm like, I thought he was like in his third or fourth year. I don't know why I perpetually think that. And
It just
70 and
doesn't
60 or
feel
something like
that
that.
long.
Yeah. 70 and 60. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought he was a better coach than that. It's like, well, yeah, he is. It's just that they make, NFC championship, they make, and then they miss it. And then they make the Super Bowl and then they miss. And then they make the Super Bowl and they miss. Well, those in between years, those down years are really down, and
Yeah.
that drives his record down. And it's like injuries. He just has this snake bit kind of record, but when he's on, it's the highest of highs. So it's
Yeah.
like what we just need is a few years in a row of of some consistency.
Right.
And it's like at least we got Brock Purdy. Like was when he got injured in the Eagles game in like the first quarter, like the first series, and then you're like, oh, and it just like, well, we got stomped, and then we tuned the then the Niners tuned the Eagles up in
Hmm.
the like was it the regular season that
It
following
was the
year,
next year,
and
the
it's like
regular season.
look
Yeah.
at us now healthy, and that
Yep.
was the Super Bowl run, and it's like, all right,
Uh-huh.
like see, I have a feeling next year is going to be like the year after Purdy got hurt in the NFC Championship
I
game.
think there's going to be a big chip on that team's shoulder.
We're
See
just
that
gonna
much.
roll teams.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you think this is a 500 team or sub 500 team. We're gonna,
Yep.
like, put your teeth on the curb, like American History X
Oh, yeah.
team.
I know. I
And it's
know.
gonna be like, because they're gonna be pissed, like, oh, we're washed, huh? Or our window's closed, huh?
Yeah.
'Cause after Purdy got hurt and it was like, ah, the Niners lost, and it's like Kittle's like, it's hard to play without having a quarterback, because we were like on the practice squad water boy, at that point, or McCaffrey was like quarterbacking for a series, and then next
No.
season it was just like, let's go on a revenge tour. And I
No.
have a feeling
Yep.
next year, if everyone's healthy, let's say, assuming they're able to keep most everybody, Debo's gone, we're able to keep Greenlaw, Trent Williams doesn't retire. Even if he does, we have some ready to play, O linemen.
Yeah.
Assuming you have a fully healthy McCaffrey and Ayuk and Mason and Garendo, Kittle,
Yeah.
Pearsall and Jennings, plus
Then
a
the list
defensive
keeps
coordinator.
going. The
Yeah,
list keeps going. This is a
yeah,
team on paper that should be Super Bowl ready now.
yeah. And then their
Yeah.
defense is healthy and they're
Yep.
being given leads. They're rested in each game because the offense is on the field pounding the rock. And then you have better schemes, and it's like, hey, here, Bosa, here's a lead, plus here's somebody who they have to pay attention to, and they can't double you, blitz, whatever. Like,
Yep.
because even just trying to, rip for fumbles or trying to overplay to hope for an interception, or overcommit on a blitz, you can't do that when you're behind or when you're on the field all the time. If you have that offensive list I mentioned, they should just be obliterating teams with a variety, with such a
100%.
diversity of calls, that
Yeah.
it'll make them have those like little cartoon birds around their
Oh,
head. And,
yeah. Because the thing is when you have even just Christian McCaffrey,
yeah.
most teams just have, if they just had McCaffrey, they would be like, okay, we're going to the
Yeah,
playoffs
and Jordan
without
Mason's
it.
a discovery. Like,
Yeah. And Mason was a discovery that we have
yeah.
now. So we can get him. It's next year's going to be fun to watch. I'm
I
pretty sure
bet
it's
you
going to
if
be a
we
fun
were
year.
in contention, Mason probably could have played. So I want to give, because I know
Oh,
sometimes you
yeah.
think Shanahan runs players in the ground. I
Hmm.
think Mason probably, if they had to have him, could have played, but they're like, you
Hmm.
hurt your shoulder. And they had him in a couple of games where his shoulder wasn't fully healed. And then they had him out and it was just Garendo.
Yeah.
And I think that they're like, look, this season's gone. Let's get Mason on the mend early. I mean, can you just, because I remember
I
watching
agree.
that
You got to sit
interview.
your guys and let them get rest
Yes,
so that next year they are good to go. I'm
look at
sure
Mason against the
McCaffrey could
Jets.
play right now. I
Yeah.
think McCaffrey probably could have played yesterday. I don't think they're gonna. They were shutting players down. Period. That was
Yeah,
it.
he gave himself up, but that was also just a brutal. I mean, it looked visually stunning, that game against the Bills, but that was just, that was, and I think
Yeah.
that was like kind of Kittle saying we don't have a like. Kittle was very diplomatic, but he was sort of saying we don't have a lot of high character, grit on this team,
Hmm.
and perhaps that's just, defensive players not buying in, and maybe you need to like trade away some of these scrubs and
Maybe a
get
little
new
bit of calling
scrubs.
guys out, trying to get the best out of them.
Yeah.
I
No, no,
mean,
no. I'm not saying it as a
you know,
bad thing. I'm saying I
yeah.
think he accurately diagnosed they didn't have that same heart, because the players
Totally agree.
underneath, they probably exposed bench riders who were not people we wanted to call into the game. I mean,
Mhm.
not Mason, of course. I mean, obviously that guy did, but there were probably a couple other players where it was like, hey, man, it's your turn to step up.
Yeah.
Mason, Garendo did that.
Right.
You have, but who was that on the defensive side of the ball? That dude who quit,
Oh yeah. Yes.
quit on the team,
Forget his
loser
damn name.
McJerkface.
I'm not gonna talk. I'm not gonna even say his name.
Yeah,
Even
I'll
if I
just say,
can
we'll just say
remember it.
loser McJerkface.
Yeah.
I
I don't know
mean, but
why
like,
it's escaping me right now. Yeah.
um, but yeah, if it's that fully healthy roster and you have a defensive coordinator who will be more aggressive, I mean,
Sure.
I'm certain. I
Yeah.
don't think. Look, the Rams are beatable, and they won the NFC West, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
they're a
we
very
just looks
beatable
like
team,
such
even
dog
without
shit.
all our parts.
Bottom line, we didn't win that. Yeah. If
We
you
should
look,
be rolling to the NFC West. I mean,
yes.
if a lot of ifs, but if it's the team that on paper we should have,
Hmm.
we should just be just murking people left and
I
right.
agree. I agree. So let's see what happens. We're running out of time here, actually, unfortunately,
Yeah.
guys. So we'll see you
Shout out to
guys next.
Pearsall.
Yep, we're gonna look
Shout out
out
to
for
Pearsall.
Pearsall.
What a great, some gutsy, smart, like early Jennings, early Ayuk, chain moving,
Yes.
first
Pearsall will
downs.
be a big name to watch out for next year. Very quick, can
Yeah.
touch the ball. He's got good hands, and he's third on the depth chart probably. Who knows where he moves up, but that is a good problem to have. Pearsall, yes, definitely redeemed himself, and he looks like a guy who is going to just go into training camp and into next season on a high note. Let's hope that he does that. And for some reason, Bell just keeps coming back like a
Yeah,
freaking
your
cockroach.
guy.
He's on the yeah, simply won't die. He
Cowing.
gets
Was it Cowing, you
Cowing,
said?
Cowing is no Bell. He got
No,
cut and
no,
then
I'm
got
saying
brought back.
I
Cowing
like
is a
him.
guy that came in yesterday. Cowing
Yep.
is a guy we need to watch out for because he can be really good on special teams.
Yeah.
Probably fourth on the depth chart next year at wide receiver, but special teams, yeah. Garendo, special teams, because he'll be third on the depth chart for running back. So they can use him on this. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm excited about talking about the Niners next year, and we're going to talk every Monday, guys. Until then, anyway, even if there's just a little bit to talk about for the next month or so, we'll do a draft party here, and we'll talk about the draft number 1 through 11 or wherever the Niners drop down to if they decide to trade that pick. So we'll be around every Monday, 11:30, 11 to 11:30 here. It's supposed to be 11 today. I ran a bit late, but from now on, every Monday, Alex and I will be here at 11 talking Niners, and we're gonna just move into some other days of the week now. We're getting a schedule going, guys, and I know I haven't done that since the start of this podcast because I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but I'm getting some structure here, everybody. So please tune in. Monday is going to be Niners at 11, Giants Tuesday at 11:30, Warriors at 11:30 on Wednesday, A's on Thursday at 11. We're just going to trash talk them for half an hour until they do something or the owner resigns. And then we'll do another podcast for the Warriors on Friday because basically the Warriors are playing a couple times a week and we got a lot to cover with them right now since it's basketball season. So Alex will be with me on some of those whenever he can. And so we have a structure Monday through Friday, guys. So tomorrow, just tune in 11:30 for Giants. We're going to talk a little baseball. What prospects might be out there for the Giants to pick up? There's some news out there. He's got Giants on. So
Mhm.
Alex and I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully, if he can't do it, I will be here anyway. And remember to hit the like and the subscribe. We enjoy all of you watching and supporting us, and we'll see you in the next one.